What's going on, guys? This is the Sideboard podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Williamson, and joining me today is our guest.
Hi, my name is Benny.
What's going on, Benny?
Not too much, just having a relaxed day with my buddy Caleb here on the channel.
Nice, of course. Tim was not able to join us today, guys. He is busy with work and everything, so Benny gladly stepped in from the team, which we appreciate greatly in order to get this podcast out for you guys. All right, so let's just dig right in. We have a busy schedule for today's cast, but first we wanted to start off with a little bit of news, some upcoming events, some news with the Set 13 release, and then just some personal news talking about the game and such. So let's get right in. Upcoming events, we have two for you guys. It's going to be the Gamers 6K tournament, 6K divided by into the top cut, obviously not for first place, and then that's going to be May 8th and 9th. And then the Pro Play Tour in Miami for Supreme Rivalry is going to be May 29th and the 30th. For both two-day events, so you can expect Swiss to be on day one and Top Cut to be on day two for those events. Moving on into our delays discussion for today. Benny, do you want to go over that real quick?
Yeah, just the delays is the release for Set 13. That's a bummer. I wish that it would have came in the actual date that they said, but I know stuff, certain things are that have happened, like I just said, it's just a disappointment. But it's gonna be here before you know it, and then we could actually play with the actual physical cards, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm really excited for physical cards. I know we have some product ordered for the team and everything, so it'll be really exciting once we get all that in. But yeah, just for you, so you guys know, May 21st is the new street date for that set, so you can expect it to arrive in your stores a few days beforehand. And I'm not sure if they're doing a pre-release or not. But
I'm not sure actually. I think maybe. Maybe, I don't know actually. That's a good question.
If they do, you can expect it like a week or two in advance or whatever it is. Okay, so just some personal news about the game. We've had some discoveries on our team since we sort of reformatted, and we've been really trying to push building from the ground up with all of our skills. And so one of the things I've realized this past week was that personally I feel like I'm a control player, and so I think it's just really important to realize and critically examine what type of player you are, so that way you know what kind of decks are going to be to your strengths. Mm-hmm. So what do you think you are, Benny?
Well, first off, I want to just say I 100% agree with you, what you just said. And just this week alone, I found out that I am a mid-range / aggro player. Yeah. So, and that's just what I learned about myself in this card game. What makes you think that you are? What makes you feel better that you are a control player?
Well, as you know, I played Sin back in set 10 meta when it was more of a control deck, and I really enjoyed sort of the Iron Wall, as they called it. And so even though I got my Nats invite way back when with a Storm deck, I feel like control is more where I belong, because I don't really like to be rushed into finishing the game. I like the ability to do so by a couple, turn 4, turn 5 or whatever, but I do also like the ability to use all my cards to their complete value and not just aggro my opponent down.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I feel the same way, but as that's where my mid-range comes in, where I like to aggro my opponent down, especially if I know that they messed up or that they misplayed. I want to take advantage of it.
Right.
But that's to the same case as me being a mid-range player. I like to sit back and see what my opponent's going to do next and counter attack, just counter everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned that I love to do. I don't like just doing stuff on my turn. I like doing stuff on my opponent's turn as well.
Right. Yeah. So for sure, that definitely pushes you towards the mid-range.
Mid-range, yeah.
And then I would say aggro. People who like aggro are going to be, Tim, and obviously you said you like aggro, but I think the characteristics you're looking for in an aggro player are going to be ones that they see an opening and they really push for the win. Whereas in a control player, when they see that opening, they push for small advantages.
Yeah.
Instead of heavy advantages. Okay, so let's just move on into our topics for the meat and potatoes of today's episode. One I have here is called Control is the Way. For set 13, in my testing, it seems that the set is primarily a mid-range or control set. And it's kind of interesting because we're moving from an aggro meta. I feel like everything was aggro / mid-range.
Yeah.
Into like this control format, because a lot of decks coming out of 13 or Supreme Rivalry are, in my opinion, more control geared.
Yeah, no, that is, yeah, I completely agree with you with that too, because I can name a few off the bat from the new set that are more mid-range and control. Being one is Blue Gohan,
Yeah.
Mechikabura. Those are the only two decks that I've been playing testing with lately. I don't know you've been playing with King Vegeta.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, that's more like a control, or you play kind of control.
Yeah.
But you know, I see what you're saying on the format is pushing to being a more mid-range / control basis.
Yeah.
And 100%, yeah, that's what I agree with.
Yeah. I think it's good for the meta though. You know, we've been experiencing a lot of aggro, like I said, and now we're moving towards control, in my opinion, which I think is healthy because aggro decks are still going to exist.
Yeah, and the monster of it all is Gohan, and best of 3 is still there.
Yeah.
You know, it'll always be there. I feel like
Reboot Gohan, you mean?
Reboot Gohan, yeah. I should say that now that they're like 3 new Gohan leaders that are coming out.
I
2.
know, right? Yeah, that's good though. They're fleshing out all the characters, you know.
Yep. And you know, Future Gohan is really nice.
Yeah.
I'm just not a yellow player.
Yeah.
But I like what they're trying to do.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you guys build your set 13 decks, I would say lean a little heavier into the control side of things, because I feel like the format's going to go that way. Or if you want to be anti-meta, just lean into the aggro side of things, because aggro beats control. Control beats mid-range, and mid-range beats aggro. That's kind of how it works generically. Yeah, so moving forward, we have another topic for today. It's going to be on sequencing. A claim that I have made is that sequencing is the single most important thing to learn in card games. How do you feel about that, Ben?
Oh yeah, man. After you telling me that and just learning the, playtesting every week with you guys, well, with the team and with our friends, with Caleb himself, it helped me a lot to learn how to sequence every deck you're playing. And we were just talking about this in the car too, actually, that what makes a great player is sequencing. And and that is completely true. And at first I didn't believe you. At first I was like, I'm just gonna build like the best deck and then just play it. And I remember when we were playtesting, you beat me. I forgot what deck it was, but when I got to learning the sequence part of things on the deck, it does help knowledge of the deck and when to play a card and when not to play a card,
right?
Or sequence,
Yeah.
And 100% agree with sequence is like one of the most important key factors in a card game itself.
Yeah, it's almost like because I come from a volleyball background, right, in sports and stuff, or you can say football is you can apply this analogy to any sport really, but like in volleyball you have a rally, right, because you're going back and forth and you're going hit the ball over and hit the ball over. Imagine like if when your opponent's team was bumping the ball back and forth to set up for a spike, you could just like walk over and like smack the ball down, right? And so that's why sequencing matters, because in this game you can do that. We have all these counterplays and negates that can kill cards and all that sort of stuff. And so I feel like when you sequence properly, you negate the opponent's ability to do that.
Yeah.
You remove their ability to interact. And so that's why it's really important to me. So what have you been doing to practice sequencing, Benny?
I've been practicing, well, first off, I learned from my mistakes in playtesting.
Yeah.
Like I learned, actually our teammate gave me a good little tip is like I was telling you in the car on the way here, if you're doing a blue mirror match, whoever slaps hatch down first will most likely lose the game.
Yeah.
And that's a great sequence to know when to slap, to play baby hatch, to know when to kill their turn, to when to use it, to know when, if you're at 1 or 2 life, you could still do it, you know. And that was a good point that Josh made to me. And playtesting with him yesterday, it actually helped, because I didn't slap it down at all until the last second, and then I ended up winning.
Yeah.
So that's a great sequence tip, I would say, you know, for blue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, things like that, knowing when to do your secret rare. We have a lot of defensive secret rares now with Kai and Baby Hatch, the Heroine secret where you get to steal a card. And so knowing when to do that, because if your opponent's doing like an offensive secret and then you do a defensive in response, you know, it can just completely win you the game sometimes.
Yeah.
And so even things that are down to, you know, that basic level as well, as knowing when to negate, knowing when to pressure, that's all variables in the equation as well. I think that one piece of advice I had to take to heart when I was trying to really get into sequencing and how to properly do it was, every action you do in the game matters, and don't blame a loss on the deck is OP.
Yeah, no.
You know, and I think that's like a really good sign for people, you know, people trying to get better, is when they take every game as a critical game, and every action makes a difference. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time everything makes a difference.
Yeah.
And so I think just paying attention to that, even on the early turns, what you mulligan for is sometimes going to make or break the entire game.
And actually, speaking of that, I know it's off topic, but mulliganing is still very hard for me in some matches.
Yeah.
Like in some matchups, I know what I want to keep, but there's some matches that I'm like, man, do I keep this? Do I keep this card? Like, what do I need? And that's where I'm still learning to this day is mulliganing.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
But you know, hopefully in time I'll learn that as I go, because I found out what kind of player I am. Now it's time to figure out where I'm at or to mulligan for each I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. So like mulliganing for what matchup you're going
against.
Matchup,
yeah.
And like what cards to keep, what cards not to keep. Yeah, it's really important. You know, I went through this phase, I remember, where I would heavily mulligan to counter my opponent based on what they're playing, right? And given that is sometimes the answer, sometimes it's not quite the answer, because like when you strictly play to counter your opponent, you're still not doing your game plan.
Yeah.
And you need to progress your board in this game as well. So like you have to still do what your deck does, as well as try and disrupt what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which all is part of mulliganing, you know. So yeah, it's very important, I think. Okay, so our third topic for today's test episode, I would say, is probably one of the most important things to master sequencing, or even just playing in general, and that's in-depth testing and how to do it. And so the first sub point I have here is not to be results oriented. And so what that means, and then you can let me know what you think about it after I explain here, is win or loss doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the actions and reactions in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm a competitive person, I would say, like in sports, and anything that I do is competitive. But what you were saying is, yeah, no, I in the beginning I was taking a lot of losses to heart, and that was making me more frustrated. Like, and that wasn't teaching me anything. And the more I learned that, you know, it's just a game. You know, putting that in the back of my head and realizing, you know, my loss is actually my gain, because you have to lose to learn what your mistakes are.
Yeah.
And that is something that I completely agree with this card game and anything, you know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, knowing that I lost or misplayed, that's going to show me what not to do next time I play. You know, if it's for a tournament, if it's just for fun, or if it's just at your locals, you know, that's something that I learned and I agree on.
Yeah. You know, obviously for tournaments and stuff, we want to, you know, you want to win because prizing's on the line, you pay to enter and that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely in testing, don't be results oriented. And not just for me and you, but for all our listeners and people, you know, trying to get better at the game. I would highly suggest to not be results oriented. And I learned this from some old teammates I had in the past, because what you win or loss record is in testing doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, and you could, you know, absolutely get curb stomped by a certain player or a certain deck every single game. But then when you play against another player that maybe plays that deck slightly differently, or doesn't know when you're bluffing, or when you're, you know, you've got your defense up or something like that, just from reading your, you know, your play style like your friends do, you can take advantage of that deck because you've been beaten by it so many times. A perfect example of this is when U3 wasn't banned and Tim was playing Vegex and I was playing Invoker, and I felt like Invoker was one of the ways you could beat that degenerate Vegex deck. And I think we played like 50 or 100 games, and I was 0-50 until the very last game where I won a game, and like it finally clicked on how to win, you know?
And that makes you feel good though, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But then like every other time I play a different Vegex player, I'm like, unless you're exactly like Tim was, which I would say he's a decent Vegex player, I have an advantage on you because I know exactly what you're going to do. I know exactly how you can beat me and how I can beat you.
Yeah. And that's what that was a great example, because it's the same as, this is with set 13 coming out, so a lot of us have been playing a lot of set 13 on Untapped, and Josh has been playing Bojack. Bojack's actually very strong. It's a very good deck.
I think set 13 has a lot of really strong decks.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that, because man, Bojack, I was like, my goal is to beat that deck, you know?
Yeah.
And it actually took a set 13 deck to beat it, but it took some time. Like, I would always lose. I would always figure out, like, well, you know, what did I do wrong with the sequencing? And Josh is a very good player.
Yeah.
And he was giving me tips about, you know, how to beat blue, and that came to my knowledge, and that's how I ended up beating him that one time. But like you said, like, it doesn't matter in testing. Like, you could go 0-100, and like you said, like, that player, if you play against that same exact deck in a tournament, they might not be playing the same way.
Right.
And that's something I wish that I got to do more tournaments.
Right.
Because I'm so new still.
Well, when COVID, you know, falls off, eventually we'll start back up, or you can do like Untapped events or whatever. But yeah.
No, I like in person
for sure.
more.
I think that's the whole reason we're all playing, right?
Yeah. That's why I love our times when we play every week. We play test in person. Thursdays, yeah.
Tomorrow. To it tomorrow,
yeah.
Or today when the episode releases.
That is true. Yeah. Today we'll be playing, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do like a live, or like a
stream, a testing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have always wanted to, but it's usually like we're pretty casual when we test. So
that is true.
I don't know if they want to see that, you know, us like cussing at each other and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe in a locals or something we can do it.
Maybe we'll see. Okay, so the second guide to in-depth testing and how to do it is going to be crossplay. So we've been discussing crossplay recently with one of our teammates, Brandon Cavan. He has not had good results with his Brawly deck, his red Brawly deck, which is supposed to be one of the best decks in the game.
Yeah.
And our first suggestion was crossplay. And so what that means is you give the deck to me, or he gives the deck to you, or gives it to someone else, or even a couple other people, and have them play it a few times and kind of see what the deck is lacking, see how we play it, have him watch, you know. And so some benefits of that are like, maybe it's the player, not the deck, right? That's the most obvious one. But then another one is, well, I play differently than you do. You play aggro, I play control. So with a deck like that, where it's almost like a turn 3 kill, I would say, maybe I'll take it to 4 or even 5, and you'll take it to turn 2. And so what do you think about crossplay and how it can effectively increase your testing, or I would say stress test your deck?
So it's something new to me, but I'm not against it at all.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel like can help a player know what to do with that deck specifically. And it could actually, like the person that's helping you or playing that deck, you know, can teach you the ins and outs on that deck.
Yeah.
To know when to sequence it, and like you said in the beginning, sequencing is key. And I feel like that can help that player be better with that deck that they want to play as, such as like Red Brawly. Red Brawly is a very hard deck to sequence. I know that for a fact.
It's very punishing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these decks that require heavy sequencing, if you mess up, you just lose.
Yes. And Red Brawly is one of them. What else would you say? Which other ones would be a very hard sequence deck?
I would say aggro in general.
Aggro in general,
The principle I weigh sequencing by is, if you condense a game into 2 or 3 turns, then you have to weigh all of your actions. Because if you think about like how many things you get to do in a game, right? Let's just average, like turn 1 you get 1, turn 2, let's just say you get 1, whatever turn it is, you get that many actions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that means between turns 1 and 5, you get 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15 actions.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you divide that by 5, so you get 3 actions per turn on average. So then if you plan on ending the game on, so each turn on average you'll get 3 actions in this game. Let's just estimate, right? If you plan on ending the turn on turn 2, you get 6 actions, because obviously an aggro deck does a lot more early game stuff than a control deck, right?
Yeah.
So your 6 actions make much more, or they have much more weight than my 15 actions. And so like all of it matters: order, how you do it, how you combo. And so I would definitely say aggro is the harder deck to sequence, or also defending against aggro is very difficult.
Yeah, it is. Unless you're blue.
Hey, blue's got the best cards in the game, right?
It has the best negates in the
Senzu
game.
Bean.
Bean, yeah, extra cards.
Actually, Heroic Prospect is probably the best. I would say it's one of the best blue cards in the game right now.
Yeah, just pay 1 if you have a Unison, and you're and the reason why is because a lot of cards want to be played before their actual energy, or before their energy cost. So it does hurt.
$3.99.
Yeah, it does hurt. It does hurt the. It does punish your opponent for sure.
Yeah.
Also, I'm starting to really love God Sealing. That counterplay is so good.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people cutting it from their decks, like, oh, it's not that good, whatever.
No, it needs to be a
play.
4.
I'm like, exactly. I think the free counterplays are 100% like 4-0s in 90% of decks.
Yeah, no, it's something that I was like always thinking. I was like, man, I really need a God Sealing. And I was at first running 3, and that felt bad because I would charge 1 and then, but the good thing is about Gohan, I could grab it back from my leader effect. So, but knowing that I have 4 in the deck makes me feel a lot more safe, because when I need it for a big bomb or to stop their play, it feels good, and that's why I'm starting to really like that card a lot more.
Yeah.
Because it just You want to tap 5? Okay, bounce it back.
Safety.
Yeah,
You know.
it's a lot better than counterplay Frieza.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for sure, a lot better.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the in a vacuum best one.
Yes.
Um,
Blue is just great right now. I don't know why people were saying like blue's falling off the map. I don't think it is.
yeah.
You know, I know Baby's up there. Baby's one of the top blue decks, but other than that, they're still blue running around, and they have, like you were saying, they have such great, I want to say tools, you know, to counter your opponent and everything, and that's what I like about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Blue's definitely on paper one of the best colors in my opinion. I think their main lack is where they don't have like very good archetypes
Or board control.
or board control. So you have to really play in the mindset, like we were talking about earlier in the car, was you have to commit some resources in the early turns to board removal.
Yeah.
Whether it be, you know, like if you're playing your Gohan deck, your skillless Gohan, swinging the 20k at their unison, or even at their one of their battle cards or something just to kill it. You need to constantly remove things because you don't have that incidental removal like red and green do.
Yeah.
With their negates.
Yeah, or red in general, they can neg anything or neg battle cards.
I think red has the most board wipes out of every color.
Yeah, no, yeah, they do, or it does, I should say. And then yellow doesn't have really board control. It is just such a stall color, I think.
Yeah, they can tap things down quite well.
Yeah.
And they can like their negate. They have a lot of floodgate negates, and then like Zamasu super combo and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
they don't necessarily need to kill the thing. They just need to make it useless.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the final topic for our how to test effectively discussion is going to be a gauntlet. So I don't know if you've heard about what a gauntlet is. It's an older term for card games, but essentially what it is you assemble, 5 to 6 decks that you think are going to be played at an event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have somebody pilot those decks, and you take your deck and you play against all of them several times. Usually you do like, if you're practicing a week leading up to the event, you'll do 1 day on each deck, right? And so that's kind of what a gauntlet is. And the benefit of that is, like your Gohan deck, for example, I bet it plays very differently against a red control deck than it does against a green aggro deck.
Oh yeah.
And so you having the knowledge of what to mulligan for against those 2 decks, even your early plays, turns 1, 2, and 3, if you can master that, it just gives you that little bit more of a competitive edge because you took the time to play out a gauntlet, as we called it.
Well, like I said before, I'm actually very new to card games. This is actually my first ever card game.
Uh-huh.
So I had no idea what that was, but I do like that because, especially for the week coming up for a big tournament, it gets you knowledge of those competitive decks that you think that will be there, and that's something that I would love to do for practice, training, and that's crazy. I didn't think it was called Gauntlet. That's crazy.
Yeah. We call it a gauntlet because, like Thanos, he had the gauntlet with all the gems on it and stuff.
I figured it was a Marvel term.
Yeah. But really, like, the only downside is obviously you don't get another term. What we use is called the jungle. You don't get jungle testing, and jungle is going to be your early rounds in Swiss. So if you have a 9-round tournament, it's going to be like 1 through 3. And that's going to be where you see all those weird rogue decks. Generally, those ones get kicked out in the early rounds.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to rely on either instincts, or personally, I usually face those decks in locals because a lot of our locals are kind of casual.
Yeah.
And so you get the experience against those decks in that sort of testing, but usually you don't commit a lot to it because your deck is inherently better than that deck. And so you're going to have to, that's the main weakness of the gauntlet. So you're going to have to rely on your instincts to beat those decks, unless it's a deck that is just hitting the meta by storm and people weren't prepared for it, but it's really good, kind of like how King Piccolo did in the beginning.
Yeah.
Then, that's just something you guys
King Piccolo I always thought was a great deck too.
Yeah.
It was
I just
great.
didn't read the cards quite enough in the beginning.
Yeah, no, when I saw it, I was like, man, this deck's actually really fun, really good. And I liked it too because I could go super aggro or go mid range.
Yeah.
And normally, you know how you were saying, so my comfortable spot as actually beating my opponent is always turn 4, turn 5.
Yeah.
If I get to turn 6, I get a little like scared.
Yeah.
Because I know with 6 energy, my opponent can do a lot.
Yeah, they can drop
A food shroud. Yeah.
Which just
ends.
I feel like all the games I've played against a control deck where turn 4 or 5 I don't, I get in a winning position but I'm not winning the game yet, and they go to turn 6 and they just drop that. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, no, it's just you gotta combo everything. You gotta hope that you have enough combo power than them.
Yeah, or at least it gets them to turn 7 and it's like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, no. And the fact that you could do that with Sin, you could there's so many win cons with Sin, it's ridiculous. You could tap 6 for your leader effect and play, what is it, 6 dragons?
Yeah, 7.
7, oh, even worse. 7 dragons, then drop Celzino, and then next turn I'm gonna drop Food Shroud.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Definitely for the control version of Sin, which we aren't seeing very much, but it is still good.
Yeah.
Okay, so any final thoughts on sort of those episode topics we had today, Benny? Anything you want to talk about?
I guess the only thing I could say is always practice.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect, and I'm seeing it a lot. Don't hesitate to ask questions too, especially with your friends or teammates. And also about the Gauntlet. This is actually something I wanted to ask. Say if you were playing against a rogue deck, is that where siding comes in, or is it siding for something that you know that your deck will auto lose?
So siding has always been tough in this game because we have decks, especially right now. It's easier in other formats when we are not such archetype dependent like we are right now. But in the archetype dependent decks, you're usually just siding in tech cards, 1 or 2, 3 of slots. You're not really siding that much stuff out. But when you have a more generic meta, you can side out 10 cards, that are not useful in a certain matchup, and side 10 other cards to gear your deck towards a whole different play style. Usually you go up or down a bracket, so you can go control to mid-range or mid-range to aggro or vice versa. But I would say that generally you want to gear your main board towards beating the jungle, because a lot of game ones matter quite a big amount. And then you can gear your side into, it really depends on what your objective is. So if you're trying to top an event, you should gear your side to getting you through Swiss. So that would be jungle and later rounds. If you want to win the event, you need to gear your side strictly for top cut and what you're expecting. And then you just have to get to top cut. See, it's riskier because if you want to win the event, you're kind of relying upon you being able to just beat the jungle decks.
Yeah. And something that I have no experience on yet. The only tournament we went to was Rancho Cordova, which was very fun.
Yeah, and like that one, for example, right? We were expecting Vegex. We were expecting, what else were we expecting? Sin.
Gotenks Green.
Green Gotenks. What did you play against?
First round I played against AOD Soul Striker, and that was a rogue deck, and it completely destroyed me because I was not ready for it.
Yeah. See.
Thankfully, I sided a card where it wiped his board, which unexpected turn, and that's for something I was like, you know what, I want to just take something in there just in case there's rogue.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing a rogue. I ended up losing though, but just learning that the most, it was cool. It was really good to know. But the fact that what you're saying is, I just gotta learn to beat a rogue deck on my own without worrying about my side.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to focus on now. And then I feel like we should try the Gauntlet whenever we have an event coming up here in California. So.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing with the Gauntlet is it's kind of risky because we kind of did one that night at Rancho when we were testing the day before. and we didn't see some of those decks. You
Yeah.
know, I think they were there in the top cut, but we didn't see a lot of them in Swiss. People usually play what they want to, and especially the people that they're local to the event, they will kind of just play whatever because there's no risk for them.
Yeah.
And so that's where Gauntlet is important, but also not end all be all. You know, it's not what you're going to see completely at an event most of the time. But yeah, like you're saying, once in life or in-person events come back, it'll be really fun to put all these testing strategies into practice.
Yeah, no, the Gauntlet, I'm ready for crossplay, you know, everything that we were talking about, you know, we would suggest you guys do it too. It does help a lot. It does help a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for Caleb and Tim and the teammates that we have, our friends.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
That's the only shout out that I have, I guess. What is, you know, Sideboard Podcast. Caleb himself for having me here. Tim and you guys.
Yeah. All of our listeners, we appreciate you all.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Alrighty, well, I think that wraps up this episode. But before we close, we have some bookkeeping to do, so I'll just go over that real quick, and then we'll close it out.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, so quick Patreon shout out for our top tier. I think it's called Mainboard Worthy. John Stokes, thank you for donating to us every month.
Yeah, thank you.
Your continued support with logos and all that sort of stuff. And then a quick shout out to our sponsor, Injures Games, here in Clovis, Fresno Clovis. They help us with product and getting everything on time, as well as anything additional we might need. They're just a shop that really wants to push the community forward, and so they have sponsored us, and we greatly appreciate that. Check them out if you're in town, or I think they do some online sales.
I think he has a TCG.
Yeah, so check it out. Show them some support. It's mutual. So, and then lastly, well, there's two more things. We have our merchandise. If you want to get a cool shirt like this,
oh, look at mine. I don't have it yet.
I gotta get one for Benny, but you can visit our Streamlabs in the comment or the description down below. We have a link there for merchandise. You can get coffee mugs, shirts, sweatshirts, whatever floats your boat. So that's just to show us some support. And then lastly, to show us a little bit more support, is our TCG affiliate link. If you're looking for singles, just bookmark that tab. Even if it's not for our content that you want to support, pick a creator you like. I'm sure they have a TCG affiliate link, but keep that tag, or bookmark it, I should say, that link, and just use that, because one way or another you're supporting a content creator. It's free to you, and if you choose us, we are very honored and thankful for that. Alrighty guys, this is the Sideboard Podcast. Checking out. See ya.
Peace.